Good afternoon and welcome to the NASA OSBP Learning Series webinar. My name is Triphilia Parker and I'm a program specialist at the NASA Office of Small Business Programs. Today's topic is the NASA Acquisition Forecast as well as a demo. I'm so excited that we are back after a short hiatus, but we have a lot of great content that is going to be available to you today. And before we get to that, I would like to turn the floor over to Ms. Tracy Hudspeth with a few housekeeping notes.
Thank you, Triphilia. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping tips to keep in mind during today's presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them into the Q&A box. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please input your issue in the chat box. Speakers, we ask that you keep your microphones on mute when not speaking. This presentation will be recorded and attendees will receive an email once materials are made available online. This slide demonstrates what your screen looks like and the location of different functions available to you. The chat function is where you'll input any technical difficulties you're experiencing. The Q&A function is where you'll type your questions and one of our speakers or panelists will respond. The poll function is where you can respond to our poll. We ask that you take a moment to submit your response before the conclusion of the webinar. If you're missing any of the functions, please click the three dots on the bottom of your screen to populate the missing function. WebEx closed captioning is available. To enable closed captioning, please do so by clicking the CC on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Then click the three dots on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen to turn on the caption panel. Closed captioning will appear in this panel for the duration of today's webinar. As mentioned, we have a poll feature. Today's questions are, how did you learn about this webinar? Is this the first webinar hosted by the NASA Office of Small Business Programs that you have attended? Which of the following classifications applies to your institution, organization, or company? Have you done business with NASA? And what are some of the barriers to entry when doing business with NASA? The poll will be available for the duration of today's presentation, and we thank you in advance for your response. That's it for our housekeeping tips, and I'll turn the floor back over to our host, Mr. Triphilia Parker. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. I really appreciate that, and hopefully all of our attendees were able to take those notes down because we really want to make sure that we maximize our engagement with our attendees today, as well as capture who's in the audience. Just a little bit about the Office of Small Business Programs before we introduce our featured speaker, and then the remainder of the time will really be dedicated to them sharing their presentation as well as to the demonstration. The NASA Office of Small Business Programs is located at NASA headquarters, which is in Washington, DC, and we are under the leadership of Assistant Administrator, Mr. Dwight Daniil, as well as Deputy Assistant Administrator, Mr. Robert Medina. We are at all of the NASA centers. Even during our engagement today, some of our small business specialists are here online should you have questions, as well as members of our partner, one of our partners here at NASA, the Office of Procurement. And so with that, I would like to go ahead and introduce our speaker and get started with today's topic. Next slide, please. So Mr. Jeff Sage, he is the Director of the Enterprise Service and Analysis Division at the NASA Office of Procurement, which is also at NASA headquarters. He is responsible for senior executive leadership and oversight of the NASA Acquisition Innovation Launchpad, or NAIL, Office of Procurement Enterprise, e-business systems and initiatives, the Enterprise Pricing Office, and special acquisition initiatives supporting the Chief Acquisition Officer, Deputy Chief Acquisition Officer, and Chief Program Management Officer. If you would like to view Mr. Sage's full bio, when you receive a copy of these slides, you can access the link, and we'll also put it here in the chat for you if you'd like to access it now. And so with that, I am pleased to turn you over into the hands of Mr. Jeff Sage.
All right, thanks, True. So good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I'm sure we have folks from all over the place. So what I'm going to do today is walk through the acquisition forecast for NASA, what that looks like, what's on there, why we do it, how often we're doing things, what's coming up in the future. So I'm going to walk you through some slides here, and I think we'll make those available after the call. And then I'm also going to do sort of a live demo, and hopefully Murphy's Law doesn't kick in. I'll walk you through the websites and where things are at. I'll walk you through the action forecast. I'll show you some of the features and sort of the functionality that we have in the forecast itself. And then I think we're going to get to some questions. There were some pre-submitted questions, so I'm hoping to address some of those as we go through. But then open it up if there's things that we can answer, real time based on what I presented. Happy to answer those questions as well. So without further ado, let me share my screen here and make sure this all works. So, and then Tracy or True, someone just give me a thumbs up that y'all can see.
It is starting to share your content. I'll let you know when it appears.
Okay, thank you. All right, are you guys seeing it yet?
Yes, we are good to go. Thanks.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much. All right, so again, my name is Jeff Sage. I'm the director of the Enterprise Service Analysis Division. I cover a lot, as True covered in the intro for me. In particular, related to action forecasts, we play a role in the business side where we are starting to change. We've actually changed our acquisition forecast process and how we've collected the data internally to NASA, and then also how we're publishing out to the world. So that part of my office is where the action forecast comes into play. So just to give folks some context. So let's get into this. So all right, so why do we publish this? So back in 1988, the Business Opportunity Development and Reform Act instructed agencies that we need to prepare acquisition forecasts to better inform the public and interested parties in what we're doing as the federal agencies in terms of procurement activities. So since 1988, we've been doing this. Actually, preparing for this presentation, I found one of our old versions from 1995. It was a PDF. It was pretty rough in terms of just like formatting. They were excited that the next year they were going to start publishing actually on the internet. So it's kind of weird to see that and how far we've come since that point. But we've been doing this for a while. NASA's specific policy related to publishing that forecast is we publish it twice a year. So we'll do an initial update for the fiscal year, and then we'll do a semi-annual update where we'll add new things, we'll take things off, we'll indicate if things are awarded. So we do that on or about October 1st, depending on budgets and situations where that is. The date may shift a little bit, or if we're working some internal things to get the data correct, it may be delayed a day or two, but generally October 1st and April 1st is when we schedule to get these updates posted and out to the interested parties. So what's on the forecast? So for us, anything on the forecast is any competitive opportunity over the simplified threshold, so over 255,000, where folks may have the ability to compete or even be subcontractors and opportunities, and you can start seeing where they're coming through. One thing that I think is unique to NASA that the other agencies don't do that I'm aware of is that we also include in our acquisition forecast grant and cooperative agreement opportunities. I'll show you how you can filter and see those on the forecast itself. But we do publish all of those, right? And it's really we're trying to put out as much information we can to potential interested parties, small businesses, large businesses, whoever's interested in doing business with NASA. So you guys can get the information. You can start doing planning, you can start having conversations, you can start sort of aligning, hey, is this a targeted opportunity that I want to get to? I will caveat that the action forecast, and I think this is true, with every federal agency's acquisition forecast, it's just that it's a forecast, right? So it may change. There may be data that you see there, in one update that says, hey, we're thinking about doing this. it could very well get canceled. It could get updated, right? So something that we may thought had been, full and open competition may, through market research and as we're going through the normal acquisition process, may turn into a small business set aside, right? Because market research has bared something out. So really, just because you see it on the acquisition forecast at one point, it's our best guess at that time, but things are subject to change, right? So as we move through the process, we get more details. In some instances, we refine our details, right? So that's, really encourage folks to stay in tune with the forecast, keep an eye on it. But then really at the end of the day, what controls is what we publish out in sam.gov. Through an RFP or through an RFI or something you may see on there, like that's when it becomes more solidified in terms of what the agency is planning to do. But this is a very good start and allows you, folks more time to start the planning process. Okay, so how do you navigate? So and I'll show in the live demo piece of this, I'll show you where these websites are and what they look like and how to get down to the forecast. But we have it in several places on the agency website. You can get through the NASA, the procurement site. You can get through a doing business with NASA site, and then I gave the link as well that goes direct to the acquisition forecast itself. So when I switch over to the live demo, I'll sort of walk folks through those, show you the different pages, show you where things are at in there. But really just give you familiarity with those pages as well as you're, sort of looking at NASA and how you can support our mission. Just a real quick, in terms of what's coming up. So our forecast is I like to think it's really good. We've had the Professional Services Council for folks that are familiar with that. We've received the highest rating past 2 out of 3 years. In terms of what we do, how we publish it. We've been a strong partner with OSBP and OMB folks in terms of even further strengthening our forecast. So we've had a lot of conversations with them about how we do our process internally, how we do what we do publishing. And we've had some conversations with several other agencies in terms of how they could strengthen or take lessons learned away from what we did. But that doesn't mean we can't get better, right? Like there's always room for improvement. So over the next, we're working some improvements right now. So what I show you today is pretty complete. We're actually going to make it more complete. We're adding another over 15 fields to give even more data than what we already do today. Again, just more insight, more granularity in terms of the instant acquisition that's there. And allow you guys to be better positioned or make better assessments on upcoming opportunities. So we're working to add additional fields. We are working to co-list our forecast. So we will still maintain our action forecast like I'm going to show you today, but we're also going to merge our data in as well with the GSA managed tool, the acquisitiongateway.gov, if folks are familiar with that. There are several other agencies, and I think OSBP and OMB is making a strong push for the agencies that if we can have one centrally located acquisition forecast that consolidates all the agencies together, has standard data, has standard, sort of look and feel, that it would really go a long way to help small businesses, new entrants into the government space. That's what they're working. So we're actively involved in that conversation and making that happen. So we're not there yet. We're still working some of the data issues and still working to make sure that everything's clean before we push it over. But in the very near future, you'll be able to go either directly to our site or to the Acquisition Gateway site as well. I will tell you that we expect to have some additional fields on the NASA side that OMB and OFPP are not going to include in that Acquisition Gateway site, at least initially. So I would suggest that if you're looking at the Gateway site, you may pop over direct to the NASA site because we are capturing a little bit more information. We are providing a little bit more detail on our site, for folks. So check both places if you're comfortable in Acquisition Gateway Acquisition Gateway. You can see all the agencies are the ones that are in there up to that point, but the NASA side will have a little bit more. The other thing that we're working some other bigger initiatives within the Office of Procurement, the enterprise, is our business systems and how we collect data, how we publish data. All of that are sort of underlying contract management system, which feeds some of this acquisition forecast, or at least will in the future. We'll move to a more consistent, publication. So right now, like I said before, we publish twice a year, October 1st on about, and then April 1st. We'll actually try to get to quarterly. We'll see if we can get closer than that. We got to, we want to make sure that the data that we're putting out, A, is accurate, first and foremost, and then B, it's maintainable, right? That what we're putting out there is actually useful for folks. Trying to say that we're going to do it on a daily basis, things don't change that often. So don't want to put the burden on folks to say, oh, I got to go check it daily. But at the same time, is annual is too long, is 6 months, too long, right? We can look and tailor that and make sure that we're getting consistent, updates, right? That you all are able to maximize the value of those as you're making sort of decisions on your side. So these are things that are coming. I'm excited about them. I think that our forecast is, like I said, has been, sort of held up there as a good tool, right, for not only NASA, but a good benchmark for the other agencies as they're working to develop their forecasting capabilities, right, within their center. So that's what's on the horizon. I will also put in a plug, and the link's here, and I'll show you the link on the Acquisition Forecast site itself directly. JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, is our FFRDC. For NASA, they have a separate listing of subcontract opportunities with JPL. So just wanted to provide this link to folks if you're interested. It's a FFRDC out in Pasadena, California, for folks that aren't aware. But they have opportunities as well to support that mission that happens at the lab. So take a look at that, use that link. I won't walk through that. We don't own that piece of it. That's managed and operated by JPL, but I want to at least give folks some insight that, it's another place where you can support the NASA mission and what we do here. All right, so this is in there. So if you didn't catch it on the first slides, there's a QR code. Folks can go look at my bio. It's out there and folks can look at it. So I'm going to switch over here. Let's see if I can do this. And we'll switch over to the live demo piece. And we'll get back to sort of looking if there's any questions, and we can address some of the questions that came in. So, okay, so what I'm going to do first, just to sort of baseline folks, I'm going to walk you through the different websites of where you can get to the Acquisition Forecast. If you don't hit that link, this is really as much about showing you the websites and the things that are here that can help inform and make connections that you need. And then also, again, find the Acquisition Forecast. So this is the Office of Procurement's homepage. There's a lot of information here in terms of what we do in procurement, how we do it. There's some discussion about the nail, and True highlighted that in my bio. About nail and what we're doing in that space, and that continues to evolve. You can see the leadership. So Carla Smith-Jackson is our senior procurement exec. She serves as our AA for procurement at NASA. Marvin Horn's our deputy, right? So folks can see sort of leadership within procurement. You can request a meeting with Carla. I think that she's, I was on a different call with her this morning. She, the meetings with industry and understanding concerns and insights is important for her. So we make that available. And then, when we go out to different places to talk, and we've been all over the world. I was in London earlier this year, Carla and Marvin talking at an event there. We've been in Germany talking at events. We've been all over the US. So if you want, sort of some places to interact with OP leadership, right, you can track along there as well. So, but back to Acquisition Forecast and where we're at. So up here, there's a doing business with NASA. If you click on that, it'll take you to this page, and this is another page you can go directly to. But this starts to highlight, okay, how do we do business with NASA? And this may have been covered in a previous event. So for purposes of this, I'll focus on the Acquisition Forecast. So if you come to this page, scroll down just here a touch, you'll see the Acquisition Forecast here. Hit the little red dot. It will take you to yet another page. Let's see so I can see. So it'll take you here. So this is really the gateway into the Acquisition Forecast and where we're at. So establishes the why we do it, stuff that I showed you in the slides previously. We talked about, sort of give you the caveats in terms of, making sure that, you're aware of the data being updated. It's not final, right? Check sam.gov, all of that. Just sort of reiterated here. The one thing that I'll point out here is that we include, so when we do an update, you will see this date change right here. So right now, the last update we did was April 26th. We did do a April 1st update, and then we made a subsequent update actually to correct a few things on the 26th, but we will always update that. So if you come and you look in October 1st, hopefully we'll hit that date as we work through our data, and some of the new stuff that I talked about is going to get hopefully implemented for the October 1. So we may have a slight delay. But if you come here on October 1st and it still says this, you'll know, hey, it hasn't been updated yet. If it says October 1st, hey, you'll know that we've done our most recent update and things are covered in there. So just keep an eye on that date. It's really important. We also have the link to the JPL forecast is there as well if folks need it. The other thing on this page I want to, sort of encourage people to look at, because I think everybody's got different definitions for the same word, certainly across the agencies, certainly within federal procurement or outside federal procurement. If you're not familiar with some of the terms we use there, we have included data dictionary. And so what this data dictionary does for you is lays out all the fields that we're collecting and publishing as part of the action and forecast process. What do those mean, right? So like, here's the field, what does it mean by competition? If you click on that, it will give you a definition of, whatever that thing is. So for this, when you see competition in the forecast itself, you'll know, hey, this is what the definition is, whether something's going to be competed or not. So there's a lot of filters, a lot of things that you'll see when I jump over that section next. This will help you sort of navigate of like, okay, when it says buying office, what does buying office mean? For us, that's the center that, corresponds where the contract's being awarded out of. So we have 10, 11, 12, depends on how you count, buying locations around the country, literally. So, we may do different awards out of different locations depending on what the need is. So you may see awards out of Langley, which is in Hampton, Virginia. You may see, procurements coming out of Ames Research Center that's in Mountain View and Silicon Valley out there in California. So this will help you if you get to the forecast and you look at it and say, well, I don't understand what socioeconomic preference means. Click on here, right? It will give you what that means. It'll help you sort of guide through and get the terminology that we're using within NASA. So really encourage folks to look at here. I think there's a lot of good information, help sort of baseline. This will be updated. Like I said, what we're adding, I think over 15 fields. We'll update this and tweak it. A lot of what we're doing too is to align ourselves with OSBP and the other federal agencies. We've worked together to sort of come up with a common, lexicon in terms of the terms that we're using, and we'll make sure we're all showing at least a bare minimum the same stuff. So will all get included in here once we get that up to speed. All right, so that's that. Then let's go back. So when folks come in here, if you click this acquisition, agency-wide acquisition forecast, it is going to take you to another page. And so this is our forecast. So folks that have been doing business with NASA for some time, more than the past 3 or 4 years, I guess now, our acquisition forecast has gone through some transformations in terms of how we've published the data, what the data looks like, what data we've included. So it's been a bit of a transformation. This is where we're at today. We've gotten, like I said, a lot of good feedback on this. I think we continue to, make enhancements and improvements to this. So I will walk you through the features here and sort of the stuff. If there's specific questions about functionality that folks didn't submit previously, and there was a couple the previously submitted questions, if you drop those in the chat, we can pick those up after the demo, and I can pop back over here and explain stuff if we need to. So, so this is our forecast. I'll walk through the left side here first and sort of explain that, and then we'll move over to the right and show you what's going on there. So the left side is all the filters for the data. So if you're, and I'll sort of give my perspective how folks may use it, and that might be helpful. Just so folks can see how the data moves and what happens on the page when you go through these. But these are the filters that we are putting on the site that allow folks to make changes, and sort out data that may be more helpful to them. So as you scroll down, you'll see lists where, by buying location or type of requirement, NAICS code, if you're targeting a certain NAICS code or PSC, if you're looking for certain dollar values, if you want to take off the lower end, you can see the high end or vice versa. Socioeconomic preferences. So if we're setting aside or not, I will tell you that a lot of times what I'm seeing is when we're posting things on here based on our current cycle, we don't know yet. We haven't made a decision on whether it's going to be set aside or not. And so we've been trying to be mindful of that. We're trying to get that information out as fast as we can, but just because you don't see it set aside here doesn't mean that it potentially won't be a set aside. It just means that in some cases that decision has not been made yet. You can sort by when the RFP is going to be released, so if there's solicitation involved. You can sort by accident status. So there's a normal cycle as things come through here. So if it's not been in the forecast before, it's a new activity. If it's been on the forecast and now for one cycle, and we get to the next cycle, it may have no change, right? So someone's looked at it and said, yep, all data is still good. What we're presenting may be revised, right? We got more information. That point of contact may have changed, whatever it may be. So it would be listed as revised. Some things do get withdrawn, right? We made a decision that we don't need to procure anymore. We found another way to procure what we need. We may withdraw procurements, but at least it'll last one cycle on the forecast. So you'll be able to track that and say, okay, from here to here, it got withdrawn, and then it falls off. The other thing that happens is goodness, right, is we make awards. So they'll also track that. And when the awards are made, we'll give you additional information about who won and that type of information associated with that looks like on here. And then the other thing that I think that we do that is unique is whether, grants cooperative agreements. So we will highlight those for folks that are interested, and you can do that sorting on here as well. Okay, so back up here to the top. So on the right-hand side, this bigger box, right, is really the meat and potato data that we had. What we're trying to do, at least on this initial screen, is just give you some digestible, like quick content, right? Just be able to look at it, make some quick decisions based on if you use the filters here on the left, you can use the search here at the top, and we'll show you how that works. Be able to see some things. And if you scroll over here to the right, you'll see some high-level pertinent things. So what buying location, so what procurement office is buying it, the title of the requirement, the type, the NAICS code, PSL, value, if there's any socioeconomic preference, and when the RFP is going to be released, and status. So those things we show you up front, right, as the initial cut. And then, scroll over to the left, when you click on these little plus signs here for the green, you're going to get a whole lot more more information related to that specific acquisition. So detailed description, sort of synopsis of what we're buying, if we know the peer performance, product service code, how long it's going to be. We'll give you technical points of contact if they're available. So if someone was interested in this range ops, opportunity, Kim Mello is the point of contact, and we give the email addresses so that if you need to reach out, ask questions, right? That's the right person, at least technically within the agency, that is able to answer those types of questions for you. Competitive or not, if it is a follow-on contract, we put the incumbent contractor and contract number in there. So if you want to say, see who had this contract before, to a great extent, probably we try to link that up and make sure that you have that connection to be able to say, okay, well, ABC company had it before. This was the contract number. If you want to go do the research on that, make that available. And then, like I said before, when we do an award, we'll also put the awarded contractor name and contract number in there as well, and the award date. So if someone's tracking the opportunity through, you'll be able to see, where that's happening, who was awarded to, and when, and what the contract number is. So that covers sort of what this looks like when we, sort of drill down into each of these. The other thing that I'll show you is the search button up here. So the search searches all the field, data on all the fields here. So let's say if we were looking for logistics contracts, if you type in logistics, right, it starts to then filter out and gives you a much narrower view. So that's one way to sort of search in here and get down to more granular opportunities that you may be interested in. So encourage folks to use that search button. I'll go over here to the left and show you some of these sortings. So if you're doing filterings, and I think there was a question about A&E construction, right? If those are the opportunities you're targeting, you can click construction A&E. And my computer will catch up eventually. You'll start to see, now this list has been filtered, right? And it's only, getting click happy here. It'll start to filter, right? And you only see the construction A&E ones. If you want to go down further and say, hey, just show me construction at, Kennedy, right? So when you click construction, there's 31 opportunities. Within that 31 opportunities, these are the centers. All these other centers are filters sort of reshuffle, right? So you saw the list go from 10, 12 centers down to these 6. So if you're looking construction A&E, and I want to say, hey, I want to target the opportunities at Kennedy, there's 22 opportunities. You can click on this filter. It's going to further sort for you over here. So this is just a useful way, at least on the screen here, to do it pretty quick and dirty, to be able to target opportunities. and start looking at it and doing your research and what you want to look at, as potential for you working with the agency. The other thing that I'll highlight here is this Excel button. So all of this data, oh, I should do this up top here. The other thing is you can play with these filters. You may say, hey, like I got far down a rabbit hole and I sort of want to back out. You can click this clear all. That will clear all the filters and reset you back to see the entire acquisition forecast. So again, you see all that stuff reset. You can collapse these filters. So if you don't want to see sort of all these drop downs and what it looks like, you can hit the collapse all, and then it'll give you a much higher level view, just the titles of where those filters may help. So that's that. The other thing that I'll show you is hit Excel. So what this is going to do is going to download you a separate file, and it will be all the information that we publish in the forecast. So folks, they looking at our table, they like it. It's it's fun to play on here. But if you want to sort of start keeping records and track and do more analysis, right, than we may provide, or the sorting that we may provide, you can download it all to Excel. So you hit that little button, it's going to download your file. This is literally everything that we publish in the forecast. You'll be able to see it in that one Excel spreadsheet and do what you need to do with it in terms of the targeting opportunities, put it that way. So that's here as well. I just want to show folks that if there's certain things, like I said, further down that you want to do, that capability is here with that Excel feature that you'll be able to download all the data and manipulate it however you may, however you desire. So I think that's it. I don't know, Drew or Tracy, if you guys could help. I'm happy to sit here in the forecast if there's specific questions about the forecast that I can answer. I think there was a few that came in the pre-questions. I'm happy to do that in that space if that's how we want to proceed. If there's questions and I can't see them as I'm presenting here.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So we do have some questions that are in the chat. Some are maybe not as specific to the acquisition forecast, but kind of procurement in general. If you want Tracy to amplify it and lift up some of those, if you wanted to stay within the acquisition forecast to continue a demo, or we can transition to the Q&A where we have those pre-selected questions and start to navigate through those. So it's however you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, so I think let's do this. So I think there were some pre questions that were submitted, and I feel like I've touched on them, but if we can bring those up and Tracy just hit a few of those, and if it goes outside the forecast, we can figure that out. But let's hit the ones that I highlighted, I think, earlier from the pre questions, and just to make sure I get those covered.
Great, thanks. Tracy, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I will go ahead and begin with our first pre-submitted question that we received. Give me 1 second. Let me advance the slide. All right. Please describe how to filter the forecast by NAICS code or UNSPSC code.
Yep. So on the left-hand side, we track the NAICS codes, right? And we put those included. So when you're on the acquisition forecast site itself, on that left-hand column, we actually do have a NAICS code specific filter. So if you want to target, I guess, Tracy, let me steal the screen back and I can show people. We're going to go do the back and forth dance. So on the forecast itself, let's see. So on the forecast itself here on the left-hand side, you will see the NAICS code here. So you can sort through the laundry list, and these are all the NAICS codes that have opportunities. Again, there's some examples where we have TBDs where we're still trying to figure out, where's the right bucket. But you'll see that here. So if you can scroll through the list and target a NAICS code, and if you click a particular one, it will filter on the right-hand side. Like I showed before, the other option, if you're looking for something, you can use the little search, little icon here and type in the NAICS code and see if it pops up. So that's another option as well for folks as they're, as you're sorting through here. So that filtering capability is very much there. The other thing, like I said, you can download the Excel file and do the search that way as well. to identify it. And if you don't see it, right, it's maybe not NAICS code that we're targeting, or we've not made a decision yet whether it's going to fall, particular acquisition will fall into that NAICS code or not.
All right, thank you. And you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking maybe we should keep your screen up just in case we get another question that you can show, because
Sure.
this demo has been very helpful. All right, so I'll go to the next question. Give me 1 second. Now I have to just quickly, okay, go back. All right, so please describe how to filter the forecast by small business set aside groups.
Yep. So again, on the left-hand side, and I've intentionally covered this in sort of the earlier chat, this socioeconomic preference filter is going to help you there, right? So if you're looking for 8A set-asides, hub zones, any sort of set-aside that we're doing, this is going to help. So if you're looking specifically for small business set-asides, you can click that button on the filter, and then you'll see it filter here on the right once the computer gets caught up. It'll do that. So if you're targeting specific, services, disabled, veteran-owned, hub zone, women-owned, whatever it may be, if we're setting something aside to be able to find it in there. Like I said before, you'll see TBDs. Those are in places where we've not made a decision yet to say, it's going to go one way or another, or maybe full and open. So keep your eye on those as well. But if you're targeting specific, you can come in here, you can hit that button, and you'll get the filter results.
Awesome, very helpful. Next question, are there any set-aside opportunities specifically for small businesses in the upcoming acquisition forecast? And what criteria do small businesses need to meet to qualify for these opportunities?
Yep. So I can answer the first part. I may phone a friend on the small business side that maybe articulate the exact rules because I don't want to misspeak. But certainly there are absolutely small business set asides. So what I'm showing here right now, there's 64 specifically just a small business. But then as you look across the others, small business categories, right, there's other set asides in the other categories as well. So we absolutely support small businesses, right? And making sure our requirements are out there in a way that small business can support the agency. So right now there's 64. In the future, there will absolutely be more. So you can use this filter to help narrow those down, and get to that space. In terms of the criteria, I don't know, True, or somebody wants to chime in and maybe address that piece of the question. I just don't want to misspeak in terms of what that looks like.
Yeah, Jeff, this is Robert. In regards to small business qualification, the thing that you'd have to be concerned with is that the small business would have to meet the size standard for the NAICS code in that particular requirement that's out there in regards to that. And then, go ahead and make sure that they have the capabilities to go ahead and meet whatever's stated in the solicitation and the statement of work for NASA to meet. But for the things that we look at is they meet that size standard, and in SAM.gov that they've certified in there for that particular NAICS code that they are small for this particular requirement.
Awesome, thank you so much. And our next question is, what opportunities are available for construction management consultants for small businesses? Mr. Sage, I think that one's for you. All right, Mr. Sage may be having some technical difficulties. I'm not sure. Oh,
Let me go ahead and try to answer that. For
Thank you.
construction management, typically within NASA, it's handled a number of different ways. Sometimes at our particular contracts that we have at our centers that provide for facility support for the centers, they have construction management services that are provided under that umbrella type of contract for the agency. If the agency for a particular construction requirement is so large, they feel need construction contract management support underneath that, then typically under our A&E contracts that we do have, we have Title II services underneath there that NASA can go ahead and contract out for those construction management services.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Medina. So Mr. Sage, you did have a little technical difficulties there. So I'll revisit that question when he gets back on.
Yes, I was just going to share the same. I know we had a couple of questions while he's logging back on for the Office of Small Business Programs. Mr. Medina, I did send those to you. I don't know if you want to look at those and answer some of those, or if Tracy, if you had some that were already highlighted and want to offer those to Mr. Medina to respond to until Mr. Sage is back online.
Absolutely. Mr. Medina, did you have any that you prefer to for me to ask you, or do you want me to just ask away with what I have?
No, I'll go ahead and pick up a few of these. One of them is how does NASA OSBP ensure diversity and inclusion in its procurement opportunities? And the way that we do this is to make sure that any type of requirements that the agency has, that those requirements are made available to the small business community, to make sure that they're aware of these opportunities. So when NASA is conducting its market research, the underserved communities are provided the opportunity to provide us with their capability statements and how well they can go ahead and particularly meet that requirement. In addition to that, each of our centers, we have a small business specialist who is your prime point of contact in doing business with that particular NASA center. Many of them will have counseling sessions with different small businesses to go ahead and make them aware of what type of requirements are being generated at the center and vice versa, to get to understand the capabilities of those firms. And then they will put you in contact with individuals at the center who may have a need for your particular capabilities that you provide. So it gives you sort of an opportunity to prepare yourself when NASA solicits any type of requirement that they're provided on there. But the key thing that we require from the small business community is when NASA goes out with the sources sought or request for information, we're doing our market research to respond to those questions, because that is one of the primary tools that NASA uses to determine whether we're going to reserve or set aside a requirement for small businesses or underserved communities.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Medina. And I have a question here. Are there any new initiatives or programs from the from the Office of Small Business Programs that we should be aware of, especially those that align with upcoming acquisition forecasts?
One of our newest initiatives is our listening series, which is a quarterly series where we will be hosted by one of our NASA centers, where we're looking to get feedback from industry on any type of barriers that are out there that are prohibiting small businesses, underserved communities from competing for our requirements, or even being able to compete for our subcontracting opportunities with our prime contractors. So this is an opportunity that we are soliciting small businesses' feedback and input in regards to this. And this would align with anything in the acquisition forecast. If there's anything in the acquisition forecast that isn't helping you prepare you to go ahead and position yourself to compete for our requirements, then we would want to go ahead and hear that.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Medina, again for jumping in here quickly on the pivot. Mr. Sage is back, but I would like to remind everybody that we do have a poll. I think we were having some difficulties with that, but it's up and running. So if you have a chance, please take a moment to answer a few of those questions in the poll. And I will invite Mr. Sage back on, and we can pick up where we left off with the question that we were on. And that question was what opportunities are available for construction management consultants for small businesses? Mr. Medina answered that, but love to hear what you have to say.
Sorry, y'all, for dropping off. So I think, the only thing I probably have to add over what Mr. Medina talked about was just using the filters, right? So if you're looking for specific opportunities related to, certain ACE codes, certain types of work, we at NASA have, over the past couple of years, and folks may have seen that if you've been watching, for institutional services, we've created a product service lines. So construction is one of those product service lines. where we've taken a more intentional approach in terms of how we're buying requirements under that product service line. So what centers are buying it, right? So leveraging some expertise at the various centers, consolidating requirements in the sense that making them more consistent, right? So that we're not having 10 centers buying construction in 10 different ways. So that's something as well that can be looked at to sort of identify things. And all of those are the filters and the sorts that I've showed previously in that space.
Great, thank you for that. Let me move to the next question. Do you have any architectural engineering set-aside opportunities?
Yep. So I'm going to try and share again. Hopefully it doesn't break my computer this time like it did last time. So yeah, absolutely. So, and again, you know, we'll wing and pray this because I don't know off the top of my head, obviously. But we can use the sorts and the filters, right, to do that. So we can go to, and Tracy, you said A&E, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What was remind me, what was the category of work? Was it A&E? Is that what you said?
Yes, architectural
So,
engineering.
yep. So a couple ways to do that. You can do the types of requirements. So we do call out construction A&E services as a separate group within a type of requirement. So you can do it that way. Also within the product service line, A&E is a separately broken out grouping of things. So you could use this sort of feature here. And then you can go down, like I showed before, if you go down to the socioeconomic preferences, right, be able to drill down further. If we have sort of made, or at least an initial assessment of set aside status, you'll be able to go down and see those as well and click it to narrow that down. So absolutely, based on this, it looks like we have some small business set asides in that area.
Awesome, thank you for that. And it looks like that's our last question, our last pre-submitted question. If you want to jump into the chat, we can look there and see if we have anything. At this time, I invite everyone to put your NASA acquisition forecast type questions in the chat, and our speaker, Mr. Sage, will be able to answer them on the spot for you. Let me see. I see one here. I'm not sure if someone answered this one yet, but it says, how can we become NASA suppliers? Should we have to participate in a NASA grant? And then we put in the resources and then NASA reimburse them? What is the process like? Can you give details for basic startup companies? Yeah, can you give some details on that?
Yep. So I can talk a little bit, but then if I can get some help from the OSBP folks as well, I appreciate it. So really, it's looking at identifying opportunities from the procurement lens. So using the acquisition forecast, trying to target whether there's opportunities. You don't need to do grants or cooperative agreements first, right? You can jump straight into contracts. There's simplified acquisitions which are under 250,000, but then there's full contracts that we obviously need support for. So my suggestion, look at the acquisition forecast, sort of target those opportunities, whether you do it through, the types of activities or the NAICS code, however you get down there, identify, where your company may fit and have, either our products or services that can offer to the NASA mission where we're sort of indicating, hey, it's what we need. The other place, like I mentioned earlier, is to look at sam.gov and make sure you're monitoring there. So all of our solicitations for products and services will get posted on sam.gov. So you'll be able to do sorts and searches as we're actually advertising either a draft request for proposal or a final request for proposal. When we put it out, you'll be able to see those opportunities and understand better from that, like what's the criteria, right? How we're going to make our selection, where the work's going to be performed, what all the details of the actual work to be performed. So those are spaces where you can use those resources to help drill down and say, yep, I want to target this opportunity. I'm going to submit an actual proposal. There's some other things that need to happen in terms, and Mr. Medina sort of alluded to it earlier, in terms of registering in sam.gov and providing certifications and the less than technical term is sort of signing up, right, to be, a company that can bid and perform work for the federal government. A lot of that happens through the SAM.gov and that sort of self-certification process. So, Mr. Verdino, I don't know if you have anything to add in that space, or somebody else from OSBP.
Yeah, Jeff, I know. I think what you said is great. You know, if you're new to doing business with NASA, one of the first things that I would recommend you do is register in our NASA vendor database. Our NASA vendor database is available to any employee within NASA that has a NASA.gov email account, and that includes our prime contractors. So if they're looking for prime contracting opportunities, that is a database that we use to determine which potential firms are interested in doing business with NASA, and that may have the capabilities that we're doing. And then, like Mr. Sage said, you know, your simplified acquisitions are a good way to start. And if you're, you know, interested in that, you know, contact our NASA Shared Services Center. They're all procured out of our NASA Shared Services Center in Stennis, Mississippi, and contact the small business specialist there, which is Mr. Troy Miller. If you are new, one of the things we recommend is that you go to the NASA OSBP website, find out where each of the 10 NASA centers are. We have information on what each of the 10 NASA centers' mission are, what the requirements are. The firms that tend to be more successful in doing business with NASA are the ones that study what NASA's mission are and align their capabilities to those NASA missions and how they go ahead and can provide solutions to those. So when they sort of target which NASA center to go to, they know where they need to go ahead and target their marketing dollars as far as what potential opportunities may exist that meet with their capabilities, which center requirements match up best with your firm's capabilities. Once you find that, then contact the small business specialist at that particular NASA center. They'll be your initial point of contact and tell you how best to market to that particular NASA center, whether the opportunities there are as a prime contractor or as a subcontractor. Or sometimes the best thing they can do is tell you that there are no opportunities there, and you're not necessarily spending your B&P dollars trying to market to a NASA center where there really aren't opportunities for your firm to go ahead and proceed. One of the other things that I would recommend you do, in addition to looking at our NASA acquisition forecast, the Office of Small Business Programs maintains what we call an active contracts list. This is a list of NASA's reoccurring requirements. These are typically support service type requirements that come up every 5 years. This is a list that you know, can go ahead and help you market or determine which type of opportunities that you may be wanting to follow if you're in the service industry, and will tell you when that particular requirement is due to expire. So typically, 2 years from that time frame when that requirement is due to expire, NASA starts the re-procurement process in regards to that. So sometimes you may know that this requirement, because it's recurring in nature, it will be coming up within this time frame before it's even posted in the acquisition forecast. So a lot of firms find that very beneficial to sort of target and market where they want to, which requirements they want to go after. So that's what I would recommend.
All right, thank you. Another question. What are NASA's primary strategic objectives for the next 5 to 10 years that are influencing these acquisitions?
If I'm the right person to answer that, am I? Robert, do you want to take a shot at that?
Well, I mean, the strategic objectives, I think Jeff sort of talked about some of them is, you know, NASA's looking at doing things more smartly. So in the Office of Procurement's website there, they have what they call product service lines. And as Jeff mentioned earlier, you know, these are what NASA's looking at, where NASA may have similar requirements across the centers where the agency may go out and procure these items in agency-wide contract or regional contracts, or they may remain local contracts each individual NASA center. So I think that's one initiative that the agency has. In addition to this, the agency is doing quite a bit of outreach to underserved communities, you know, clubs-owned, women-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses, small disadvantaged businesses, to ensure that they are aware of the opportunities they have and they have a fair opportunity to go ahead and compete for these requirements. So we're doing quite a bit of outreach in this area, and with our learning series such as today, to try to educate small businesses more and more how best to position themselves to go ahead and compete for requirements. We also are in the process right now of upgrading the NASA Mentor Protege program. where we're going to make it more of a needs-based program, to where the proteges that do enter into an agreement with a mentor, that they actually get subcontracting work associated with that, in addition to any type of technical or business assistance that may be provided by the mentor. So we're trying to make that, again, more or less filling our particular needs, or where NASA has particular supply chain gaps in regards to that.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Medina. So, Mr. Sage, I see that you have a couple questions that you found in the chat that you'd like to address.
Yeah, so as Robert was talking there, I just went through and saw a couple that I think I can address related specifically to the forecast. So there's one question about, if I understand correctly, you would look at the opportunities of NASA acquisition forecast, and then actually go and find it on sam.gov to apply. So yes, that's correct. So to the greatest extent practical, we try to publish our opportunities on the forecast first. So as Robert sort of talked about, there's typically about a 2-year cycle when if we have a following contract or we're identifying requirements, we'll start having the conversations. We'll start talking about, okay, this contract needs to be recompeted, or hey, this is a new requirement. What does that look like? How do we start shaping the requirements? How do we start shaping that procurement strategy? We will start putting things on the acquisition forecast. So look there. Like I said, most of our opportunities are on there, the ones above the simplified threshold, but not all of them get there. So I'll qualify that a little bit. So there's some cases where we move very quickly, we have to get an opportunity out, and it falls within that sort of 6-month window currently of us publishing, where someone may slip something out that doesn't make the forecast, but it goes straight to sam.gov. So you got to use them in conjunction with each other. And make sure you're checking both, to be honest with you. So the forecast is just that. It's a forecast. It's sort of our our best guess on what's coming down the pike for that fiscal year, but things change. And then yes, sam.gov is actually where you're going to see that request for proposal. It's going to tell you, when the due date is for that proposal, who you submitted to. It's going to give you all the specifics, right, of that acquisition, and how you bid on that work. So that's how you use those two together. There was another question about how does our procurement site differ from sam.gov? So sort of just touched on that a little bit. The sam.gov site is going to be where the actual opportunities are posted once the agency says, yes, I want to move forward. I want to do this acquisition, this procurement, and lets the world know, hey, NASA is buying this service or this widget or whatever it may be, and how interested parties can submit proposals in for that. And then also if that, can be a signal if you're looking to sub with other folks that, hey, these companies that are bidding on it, if it's full and open and there might be a large that's priming it, these companies are starting to line up potential subs, right? And when their proposals are due. So you'll be able to watch and sort of see that, but that's where the actual opportunities are being posted, is on sam.gov versus our website. Again, is just providing some initial information, sort of a precursor to that work that's actually done on sam.gov to advertise the actual, opportunity. So those were two, Tracy, that I saw that I could, answer specific to the website itself and what we're doing.
Hey, Jack, can I ask you a question on the forecast?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. In the forecast, once that particular requirement is actually awarded to a contractor, is that information made available on the forecast? So if someone's looking for subcontracting opportunities, they can know who the prime contractor is that received that award?
Yep, absolutely. So the forecast, the opportunity will be there. Once the opportunity is awarded on the next cycle, we'll pick up and say, hey, this contract or this opportunity was awarded to this contractor, by name, give you their contract number and the award date. That will stay on the forecast for one cycle. So let's say the award happened on September 25th, right? Let's say the opportunity came up on September 25. It will get captured, right? We would post it as an opportunity. Let's say it got awarded in January, then of that next calendar year. At the next cycle update, so April 1st, when we publish the next update, then that opportunity would change from new to awarded, and then we would provide that information related to who won and the contract number that would, yeah, very much enable someone to go run that down and make contacts if they want to try and have some subcontract opportunities. Absolutely.
Jeff, a follow on to that. Could the individual, you said they put the contract number in there, could they take that contract number and request a FOIA for a copy of that contract and statement of work to find out what's there and potentially what type of opportunities may exist for subcontracting again?
Yep. So, and I think you can even shortcut the process. So FOIA, absolutely, right? You can FOIA just about anything. But in terms of this, what I actually suggest to people is if you find the contract number, you will more likely than not be able to do either a search on the awarded contract number or even a search on the title of the contract or the title of the RFP or the opportunity. If you do a Google search on that, a lot of times you'll get search results back from SAM.gov, and you'll be able to go in and see. So when we post the opportunities on SAM.gov, you will see the statement of work. You'll see the terms and conditions of the contract. You will see, at that point, you'll see the contracting officers, small business goal recommendations, right, that are put out there as part of that process. So you can short circuit the FOIA process and not have to go through sort of that, that whole process and the timing that it takes to come back around. And, with a little Googling, being able to find the actual RFP on SAM.gov and get that very information.
Thanks, Jeff. That's very helpful information. Appreciate it.
All right, I see a couple questions in the chat. Let's see. What is the best way to track how NASA will specify rules and regulations regarding how artificial intelligence tools can be used in responding to individual acquisition efforts?
Yep. So this is my other hat of the e-business office. So AI for the agency is not new. We've been using AI for quite some time, and then when I've talked about sort of in our space-based applications, right? So the Mars rovers have AI. We've used AI within the agency for a long time for data analysis, right, for the science missions. So AI for NASA proper is not a new thing. So we've bought it over time, right, through different mechanisms. With the sort of the release and now more to the general population through the chat GPTs of the world, AI has become more of a thing that folks are putting in a more general space. I'll say that way. So I say for Earth-based applications, right? So we look for AI potential use cases in procurement or in Chico or sort of some what we do on the ground here to just day-to-day admin for the agency. So because we're looking at that more, there's more emphasis from the administration, from the White House, from NASA administration, sort of looking at the applications of AI, how that works, what the impacts are in terms of safety, health for somebody, privacy for folks, that type of thing. So we're looking at AI within the agency from a new lens now. In terms of how we're purchasing it, because like I said previously, AI was on a Mars rover. It wasn't impacting, right? We were in a pretty confined space in terms of the touch point of the AI and how it's working. Now, that we're applying it to different areas of NASA's mission, there's a lot more questions, right? So the agency has recently appointed a chief AI officer, Dave Savanini, serves in that role. And so they're working feverishly through Dave and his team, and then a lot of the other organization stakeholders, so procurement, OCIO, OGC at the agency, to work through some of those more more Earth-based applications and the impacts and how is that going to shape how we do procurement. How we do procurement for AI type activities, how we use AI activities ourselves for some of our activities. So that's very much still a work in progress. The agency has some basic guidance out about generative AI use by employees, but it's really largely right now been handled case by case on an individual procurement level as things come up. And as you can imagine, data rights is an issue in this space that seems to be always in the conversation. So we work through them right now, sort of individually, in some procurements based on the situation at hand. I will tell you that the FAR Council, from a federal acquisition regulation standpoint, is working in the same space to come up with guidance for all of the agencies to follow in terms of the acquisition space. OSBP is very active in the space as well. trying to give resources and, best practices, lessons learned, those types of things to the agencies to better inform them, right? Make them astute buyers of AI and how we do that and make sure that we're doing it smart and protecting what we need to protect, right? And being able to get our mission done.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have just one more question. Let me just check one thing. All right. So last question. Can you please clarify contracts versus subcontracting?
Yeah, and Robert, I'm gonna bring you back on here. So, from my procurement lens, so contracting, right? So prime contracts. So the federal government or prime contract situation has the direct relationship with the party that's responsible for performing that contract. So, if we put a requirement out for janitorial services, let's say at Goddard Space Flight Center, there will be a contractor that the agency contracts with, right? It's their name on the bottom of the piece of paper and the NASA name on the bottom of the contract that says, hey, NASA is contracting with X company to perform these services. So at the end of the day, right, that's who the government has the contractual relationship with. That's where the period of contract comes, right? That's who we hold responsible and expect to execute, the requirements of the contract. From my lens, the subcontractor is a entity that's supporting that prime contractor to do portions of that requirement, right? So each contract is a little bit different. Each prime contractor has different methodologies for sort of what they sub or what they will subcontract out. So some companies may say, hey, a prime contractor may say, I'm very good in this space, but I need support or I need augmentation to my staff to do these types of requirements. So they will carve out separate chunks of work. And that prime contractor will be the one that would go through the subcontract and advertise those opportunities, create that contractual relationship with that entity to perform those pieces of work. So that's, sort of my swim lane from the procurement standpoint. Robert, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, for companies that are interested in subcontracting opportunities, each of our NASA centers, we either have industry or contractor counsel at the centers. And these are typically made up of our contractors that support that center, our large and small business contractors in regards to that. At times, there will be outreach events at each of the particular NASA centers where our major prime contractors that do have subcontracting opportunities will be available and participating in these outreach events. Our small business specialists, each of the centers know who the major prime contractors are there. And the primary point of contact, if you're looking for subcontracting opportunities with our major prime contractors, is what they call a small business liaison officer, an SBLO. So they'd be similar to what NASA has for small business specialists. So these would be your points of contact, if you feel like, looking at a particular NASA prime contractor, that they're doing work for NASA, that a portion of that work is something that you have capability in, seeing if they have an interest in potentially having subcontracting opportunities that match up with your firm's capabilities. That SPLO would be the point of contact because they would have an idea of what that particular prime contractor is going to be subcontracting out for that particular NASA contractor.
Awesome. Thank you both for your answers to our pre-submitted questions and our questions that were in the chat. So this will conclude our question and answer session. And while I have you, Ms. Medina, I'd like for you to go over the active contract listings. I'm going to pull up my screen and share that with everyone. And just let me know what you need me to do.
Yeah, if you can go ahead and pull up the, okay, you got it? Very good. So if you can go ahead and on these, see, this is, like I mentioned, these are NASA's reoccurring contract requirements that typically come up every 5 years. If you notice on there, we have different categories of requirements that we go ahead and identify that NASA has a number of particular contracts. If you can click on the one for administrative services. We'll bring up that list.
Sorry, Richard. I'm sorry, Robert. I'm not seeing it on the list. Do I need to download that? I'm sorry.
It's the link at the bottom. Download the NASA ACLs.
Oh. Got it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
So this is a list of the active contracts that we have for administrative support services. So you'll see on here, it will identify a particular NASA center that is buying that requirement. The name of the actual contract will provide you with the contractor name, the contract number, if that requirement was set aside for small business or not, when up full and open. And it will keep scrolling to the right. Will provide you with the dollar value of that particular requirement, and it will also provide you with when that contract is due to expire. Like I mentioned, a lot of firms will go ahead and utilize this information in two ways. One, if it is awarded to a large business, they will use this information for potentially contracting that prime contractor, potential subcontracting opportunities. In addition to that, firms will use this, go ahead and determine when that particular requirement may start the reprocurement process and start contacting the particular NASA center that will be awarding that contract to go ahead and make that center know that they are interested in the follow-on contract for this requirement, and talking to the small business specialist and determining how best to go ahead and position themselves, go ahead and compete for that requirement, and potentially, if it hadn't been set aside, to get that particular requirement set aside for a particular small business category in regards to that. In addition to this list of active contracts list, under that same listing, we do provide a list of the active requests for proposals that are out there. So in addition to going to sam.gov, we will go ahead and post the solicitations that are active out there, and when that particular solicitation is due to close. So it will go ahead and provide you with a listing of potential opportunities that are active, which you can go ahead and pursue to go ahead and receive those particular contracting opportunities. So this listing can be found on our OSBP website, and also a lot of firms like using the OSBP mobile app, which is on the Android or Apple platform, and they can go ahead and from this list, like I said, contact a particular NASA center that has that requirement and do a follow-up with the small business specialist on when that particular requirement will be up for recompetition. So I think that's it, Tracy.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Medina. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our OSBP updates, and I'll pass it over to our host, Mr. Fuller Parker. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it back up.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tracy. And before we go into the OSBP updates, just want to thank Mr. Jeff Sage from the NASA Office of Procurement for joining us today. Really appreciate the information that you shared, as well as the in-depth demonstration of the NASA acquisition forecast tool. And so we did share the link to the platform in the chat. We'll also send it out when we send the slides. And so hopefully our attendees today will be able to make great use of that agency resource. Also want to thank Mr. Medina, our Deputy Assistant Administrator, for joining us for impromptu Q&A, as well as an overview of our NASA active contract listings. Next, we are going to just provide a few quick updates for the NASA Office of Small Business Programs, and these will also be included with the slides that you will receive after the event. Next slide, please. So as we mentioned at the start of today's webinar, we are back with our NASA OSBP Learning Series after a brief hiatus. And next month, our topic will be our NASA's Enhanced Mentor Protege Program overview. That's a tongue twister for me. So if you'd like to join us for that, you want to learn more about the enhancements that have been made to the NASA Mentor Protege program, please either visit our website for more information or scan the QR code that's on the screen, and you can register for that webinar, as well as our other upcoming webinars. As Tracy mentioned, we do have our webinars planned out for the remainder of the year. So next month, we'll meet again on the third Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on September 18th. Next slide. And listed here on this screen again is, a QR code that'll take you to our Learning Series website page on our website. Next month's topic is going to highlight our Mentor Protege program. And then October 16th, we will have Charting New Horizons, our annual small business town hall with our NASA OSBP Assistant Administrator, Mr. Dwight Daniil. For those of you who have been with us for a while, you know that we are under new leadership, and Mr. Daniil joined us in February of 2024. So this will be his first town hall with NASA OSBP, and we're excited to have it, and we will be excited if you are able to join us. So again, if you scan that QR code, you can register and receive all of the information that will allow you to have access to that webinar. Next slide, please. Our NASA vendor database. This is one of the tools that we use at the agency for market research. It's open to all vendors, as well as to educational institutions. On the screen is a QR code to access the NASA vendor database. If you have any questions or difficulties, please, reach out to us via email at smallbusiness@nasa.gov, and we'll put that in the chat. But at our NASA vendor database, it has been modernized, it has been enhanced. You're able to upload your capability statement. You're also able to input a customized capability statement into the database. We are able to, at the agency, email vendors who are registered with particular opportunities via the platform. And so we really encourage those who are interested in doing business with NASA to register in our NASA vendor database. It goes a lot further than, we appreciate sharing business cards and capability statements when we're in person. And even in the chat here, I saw some businesses, share their contact information. But, this vendor database goes a lot further. Everyone at the agency has access to it. And we make use of it as part of our market research efforts. So we encourage you to join it. Next slide. Excuse me. Mr. Medina mentioned our NASA OSBP mobile app. We are in the 10th year of our mobile app. So it was established in 2014. So we're really proud of that. And again, it's another way to engage with the Office of Small Business Programs. It's available on the iOS and Android platforms. You just search for OSBP mobile and it will come up. You're able to, again, access the active contract listings. You're able to reach out to our small business specialists at each of our centers, and as well as a lot of other information, find out about our upcoming events and other engagement activities. So if you want to have another way to engage with the Office of Small Business Programs, we encourage you to download our mobile app. Next slide. OSBP is also on X, formerly Twitter. We also engage via our various team members on LinkedIn, and we also are on Facebook, and we'll be sure to share that information with you when that goes out. So if you're on social media, it's another way we want to, make sure we amplify and maximize how we reach out to the small business community. So if you're on any of those platforms, we are too. And those are on the screen, how you can find us, follow us, and stay engaged. Next slide, please. Our publications, again, this information is available on our website, and highlighted and featured on the screen here is our Small Business Guide to NASA. This is really our flagship publication. It has all of the information that you need to engage with the Office of Small Business Programs at NASA. And really a lot more. And so you can find information about each of the centers, our small business specialists at the centers, what they buy, so that when you're doing your research and engaging with NASA, you're fully informed. And so we encourage you to visit our publications page and and download that publication or bookmark it so that you can have it as a ready resource. Next slide, please. And as always, we want to hear from you when it comes to topics of interest to our small business community. I know that we had a couple of topic suggestions just today in the chat. If you have any suggestions, please email them to us at smallbusiness@nasa.gov. We cannot guarantee that they will all be, included or featured in our upcoming webinars, but as best that we can and as appropriate, we will, try to incorporate those because we want to make sure that the information that we're providing is useful and relevant to you. So again, if you have any topics of interest, send those to smallbusiness@nasa.gov. Next slide, please. And again, this is our website, NASA, www.nasa.gov/OSBP. If you've been to our website recently, we encourage you to just kind of bear with us. We are going through a rebrand refresh. So some of the changes that we're making are immediately effective and some of them are ongoing. So the information there is good and accurate, but if you visited our website before and you're used to information being in a certain location, just if you could be patient with us because it may have moved around a little bit. So, but that is our website, www.nasa.gov/OSBP. Next slide. And this is my contact information. Again, my name is Traphilia Parker, Program Specialist at OSBP, and my phone number and email are there if you have any questions, concerns, or suggestions for our OSBP learning series. We are happy to receive them. Next slide. All right. Again, thank you for joining us today. Just as a reminder, I know we had, some difficulty with the poll, but I believe it's still open. If it's not, Tracy, just please correct me. But if it's still open and you have not had an opportunity to complete it, we encourage you to do so. It really does provide us a record of who was in the virtual space. And we use that for our, future planning purposes. And again, all of the individuals who registered for the event will receive an email with a link to access the presentation, the slide presentation, as well as a link to today's video recording. We also share this information on our website, so you can also have access to it on demand there. And finally, just another thank you to Mr. Jeff Sage and the NASA Office of Procurement for joining us today for an overview of the NASA acquisition forecast, as well as a demo. Mr. Robert Medina for joining us for our Q&A, and Tracy Hudspeth for moderating today's webinar. And finally, a thank you to all of our guests that are here today. We hope we see you again next month or in one of the following webinars, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Thank you.